I'm so honored and excited to have Ericka Hart today. And we'll just have a conversation about the intersections of race, sex, and pregnancy, and parenting, and queer parenting, and whatever else comes up.
Yeah.
Yep. So if you're just arriving, feel free to put any questions that you have in the chat. And yeah, go ahead, Ericka, if you want to introduce yourself. I'm sure people know you already, but it's always
No,
good to
I'll
do.
definitely introduce myself. Thank you so much for having me in this space. I have been a huge fan of your work for quite some time. So thank you first and foremost for your work in a space of queer parenting that oftentimes gets erased. So I thank you for the work that you do. My name is Ericka Hart. My pronouns are she and they. I am a Black, queer, non-binary femme, breast cancer survivor, and first time parent. I am 1 year postpartum. My kid just celebrated their first birthday, February 8th. So this has been a whirlwind. I am a paid and trained sex educator. I've been doing sex education work for the past 12, 13 years now. And so much of my work has been focused on the beginning of my work was focused on keeping people from getting pregnant. So a lot of teen pregnancy prevention work, and then even coming into a more pleasurable based practice, still there wasn't a lot of, really at all, a lot of information to how to get pregnant. It was always very elusive and confusing, especially as a queer person. So yeah, trying to get pregnant was a re-education for myself because I really had to figure out how do you even get pregnant? Like what does that look like? How do you come into this? Is it possible for me? What are the resources? What's available to me? It just was literally I felt like I was starting from scratch.
Totally. So many queer folks feel that way. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's messed up. It's a reproductive justice issue, I think,
Oh,
us having
100%.
access to this
Hmm.
information. Yeah.
100%. Yep. Yep. Absolutely. And just a total breakdown on the part of the United States, the state, like who they want to procreate is very evident in
Mhm.
who is given the accessible information about having children. Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
Totally.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, so the questions that we have so far have a lot I mean, so there are a couple. One is, how do you navigate engaging with cis het society as a queer parent? Kind of this like overall question. And also kind of piggybacking on that, why do you think that Western society seemingly hates children? And what does that have to do with being a queer parent? Like, how do we create the spaces to empower ourselves and our families?
Wow.
Just diving in.
Wow. I mean, I would actually love to hear your advice with your kids at so many various ages.
Mhm.
My kid is young, but the gender conversations start so early. I mean, when I was pregnant, the conversation I think doctors asked the most were, what are you having? Right? When I'm in the grocery store and people see that I'm pregnant, what are you having? That's always the question. It's not, how are you feeling? Do you need anything? It's this obsession with gender. And
Mhm.
I remember we told family and friends that we don't want to know, and we won't know what the gender is until they tell us, but we don't want to know sex assigned at birth until they are born. And when we started telling people the sex assigned at birth, we started getting like shirts that said little man and he's so strong and mama's boy. And I just was
Mhm.
like, this is a lot. All right. Like just even the assumptions about colors too. I remember I bought
Totally.
a pink onesie with flowers on it. And I think a family member was like, well, why would he wear that? I'm like, because he's a baby.
Mhm. Yeah. And it's
That's
pink and
why.
flowers. Yeah.
It's clothes. I don't think he's going to look at it and be like, oh God, I cannot wear this pink. Like that's not actually going to happen.
Mhm.
So, how I deal with it is really just addressing it, like kind of head on and talking to people about. their assumptions about what a child should be doing, right? And these projections of really harmful gender tropes on people that can't consent to anything, right?
Mhm.
And they're not able to speak up for themselves or name themselves. And we are putting so much pressure on them to be one particular way. So,
Mhm.
really having conversations about that, and also just throwing those clothes away. So, all the little man and all that kind of stuff, like, as much as fast as they grow and as helpful as having baby clothes is, I just refuse to have them wear things like that. I just, it's also so like, little man is so weird to me. Like,
I
like
know.
what?
I
Um,
know.
so yeah, like getting rid of it, having conversations head on when
Mhm.
we are confronted with it. But I will say that it's challenging. Like, even somebody that has a, a major background in sex education and my focus is in gender, I still get confronted by, like, oh, but this is my dad, right? Or this is my, essentially
Mhm.
my
Right.
mother-in-law, right? Like, that, even it becomes challenging, but I have to remember that I'm creating an environment for this kid, and I want them to feel safe and safer,
Mhm.
especially
Mhm.
with me, in the world. I can't control that. But with me, with our family, like, how can I keep them safe? And that's what I keep at the forefront of my mind, when
Mhm.
I'm, confronted with cishet culture. I feel like because he's so young, there hasn't been a lot of, oh, he has a girlfriend, or all that stuff like that. Like, some people say, oh, he's going to be a heartbreaker, which I, interpret as that could be any, gender that he's attracted to, any sexuality.
Sure.
But even that feels strange. Like, just the sexuality just brought, I don't know.
I
It's just so
know.
weird. How do you deal with this? Like, I want to know how
I
you deal.
know. It's so I mean, our culture is so it's so weird about everything. Our culture is so weird about everything. So weird about babies, so weird about gender, and, I think it changes. I love what you said about, like, orienting towards safety, like,
Mhm.
creating that safe space. So I think, like, as those of us, who are queer and have different marginalized identities, like, that safety and community is really important, like, having that home base to go back to,
Mhm.
because it's annoying. Like, I remember when my kid started TK, and there were other families that were like, "You can't have 2 moms, you have to have a mom and a dad," or, other kids saying that sort of thing. And so I learned, okay, at the beginning of the school year, every year I'm gonna give, like, 3 books to the teacher and be like, "Hey, here, please read this to your students," and, like, finding ways to, like, create that safety, and then also just, like, letting them come home and, be like, have those conversations around, your donor and who they are in your life. And, like, yeah, a lot of families have a mom and a dad. A lot of families have two dads or one dad or one mom or grandparents. And, you have two moms and a donor, and, like, kind of normalizing these conversations from the beginning.
Mhm.
It's hard. I mean, it's, our kids grow up dealing with that that identity at an early age of being children of queer families. And I think, we do the best that we can to be that safe space and, like, help them build resilience in these ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. But I
Absolutely.
think, yeah, just being, like, really gentle with ourselves too,
Hmm. Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
the amount of emotional and physical labor that parenting is, and
Yeah.
showing up for that every day
Yeah.
and every night,
Yeah.
and just being gentle with, like, the little parts of ourselves that are hard on us. I
Yes.
think that is important.
Yeah. And I think too, like, I love what you said, like, also building community. So I live essentially like in a queer and trans bubble. Like,
Mhm.
most of our chosen, I mean, all of our chosen family for the most part is queer. I think we have maybe two straight friends. So there isn't, I feel like East is our kid is not gonna have so many interactions with cishet culture when they're with us, right? They are absolutely
Mhm.
going to have that in the world. But I love that it's a bubble. Like, sometimes people relate to bubbles like they're a problem,
Mhm.
but that's not. I feel it's so safe here. And as queer and
So
trans
good.
people who don't get to be safe anywhere else, I love that we have created that for, someone that is just going to be born into that. I did have an incident on online because I share so much of my life online. I did a song like thing with East. He was wearing a rainbow onesie, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, "Gay baby, it's a gay baby," and
Mm-hmm.
it went viral, but in the wrong direction. So amongst queer and trans people, but also amongst homophobic and transphobic people. So
Mm-hmm.
the attacks were really, really bad. There were articles, there was a radio station that talked about it. And that scared the hell out of me.
Of course.
It made me feel like I shouldn't share about myself, I shouldn't share about East, and also just made me aware, one, of the bubble that we live in, but two, of how homophobic and transphobic this world is. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
I forgot, but the fact
Mm-hmm.
that people were so upset about, clearly, like, one, this is a joke, but then at the same time, why wouldn't I be excited if my kid is queer, right? If my
Right.
kid identifies how I identify, right? Like, there's
Mm-hmm.
all straight cishet people love to apply sexuality and gender to their kids, but whenever we do it, then we have an agenda, right?
Right.
But there's no
Totally.
addressing of
Totally.
a straight agenda, right? There's no conversation that we're all born into a straight agenda that so many, even folks who identify as cishet, can't even
Mm-hmm.
see.
Mm-hmm.
So that was challenging, and I think, how do you deal with cishet culture? I think about that instance, like, and
Right.
I kind of just fell into myself a bit. It was really, really hard to, I mean, cyberbullying is its own,
Mm-hmm.
thing, but it just was really, really challenging to deal with that. Hmm.
Totally. I'm so sorry that that happened to you, and thank you
Hmm.
for sharing. And like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's like when we're in charge of taking care of these tiny
Hmm.
vulnerable humans, it
Hmm.
hits different. You know, all of
Hmm.
this stuff. Like, it's not
Hmm.
just us out there in the world. It's also like these
Hmm.
most precious beings,
Yep.
and it's
Yep.
big.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, we have a really awesome question that I'm excited to get your take on.
Yeah.
So this person says, as someone currently trying to get pregnant in a spermless relationship, I've had a really hard time with the constant tracking, interacting with providers who do not care about queer people and do not make an effort to understand queer baby making. I don't know your TTC experience, but my process has made it more difficult for me to experience intimacy in partnership. I wonder if you have any thoughts on intimacy during the TTC process as a queer person.
Oh, such a good question. And so validating for even my own experience. I feel like I could have written this question. It is exhausting to be trying to conceive, right? Like, it is so, it takes all of you. And as queer folks and trans folks, it is so already challenging because all of the information is not availed to us. But then the impact on our bodies, right? Navigating these medical institutions, even if you're working solely with birth workers, there's still an arm of medical institution there as well. It's hard, right? And people like laughed at me, but I would go on Instagram and share, I'm getting rid of all of my Teflon pots, right? I'm getting rid of everything that's plastic,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I threw everything that was plastic out, all the Teflon out. Like, I think I had well, I'll back up. I'll tell you that I always imagined trying to conceive like Bet and Tina from the L Word. That
Mm-hmm.
scene where they have all the candles everywhere, and I think Bet has a turkey baster and literally inseminates Tina, and then of
Iconic.
course they're
Yeah.
pregnant. And I just thought, this is how I will get pregnant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we got, what happened is that we got sperm. We didn't trust ourselves to turkey base, so we hired a birth worker. They came over. They didn't have childcare for their 2-year-old. So who was sitting in the corner of me getting inseminated? Their 2-year-old on their little iPad.
I've done that
It was
before.
right. I lit some candles, but there's still a 2-year-old in the corner, right? It's already not this romantic feel.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened is that the sperm was not washed. So, and when you do IUI, intrauterine insemination, sperm has to be washed because it's being inserted directly into your uterus. So it's not going through the process of being washed by your cervix and the vaginal canal. And the reproductive fertility clinic never told me that is it washed or unwashed. They never asked for the process. So I
Mhm.
set up all of this stuff. The scene is set besides the 2-year-old in the corner. And I still was not able to get pregnant. I had thrown away all of those pots. I was taking so many vitamins, like any vitamin that said that I was supposed to take, I was taking it. I even tried Mucinex. I think people on TikTok were like, if you try Mucinex, it'll clear the mucus and get your cervix ready and able to get, and I just did it all. And at that point, I was so tired. So when that pregnancy test came back negative, which I knew it would because sperm wasn't washed, I was so upset. And we had to take a break because I felt like I was spiraling a bit. So the intimacy, even with myself, I felt disconnected from myself, and my spirit and who I am as a person. I felt so focused on this one goal that I had to take a step back, and take a break and refocus and really reconnect with myself on why I wanted to do this, and really let go of these really Hollywood based expectations of how this would look. So that's my advice to you, is to consider the expectations that you may have, go back to the drawing board on why you want to do this, and also the pressures of um, being intimate even with conceiving. Like I was bringing a vibrator into my IUI appointments to masturbate after I was inseminated so that my vaginal contractions could make the sperm go faster. And I'll tell you this, I got pregnant and I did not masturbate afterwards. So, I got pregnant. I honestly wholeheartedly believe because I did not walk in there under a ton of stress. I was like, if it happens, it happens. I was laughing throughout my IUI experience for the first time. Every single one of my IUIs was painful up until that point, and it had everything to do with the provider. It didn't have anything to do with me, obviously. So I think just try your hardest, and it's really, really hard. And I kind of hate it when people said this anyway, so please don't hate me. But I understand if you do, is to try to take the pressure off a little bit, because this kid is going to come when they want, and they are going to enter your body when they want. And I think that reminder is important. I think we live in a society that is very much, we want to control things and have things happen when on our time and immediately, and that is just not the case with conception. So that would be my advice to you, is get reconnected to your body and try to let go of this expectation that it needs to happen now, and it needs to happen on your time, because the biggest lesson for me with this is that it won't happen on your time. I hope
Mhm.
that helps.
Thank you.
Hmm.
We have some more. Before we move on from the TTC specific time, I'm just curious if you have like specifically as a queer Black person, like for BIPOC folks, like are there any extra pieces of wisdom and support that you can offer around holding all of those experiences?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that comes to mind directly for Black people is if you're interested in having Black sperm, it is really, really hard to find. But I literally called, what the hell was sperm bank? The California Sperm Bank, Cryo
Mhm.
Bank, and I called them and was like, where is your Black sperm? Right? Like, that's all I want, and I'm interested in working with you. So what can we do? And they started like sending me resources. Like when a Black sperm was available, they'd be like, here it is, it's available now. Like get on it or it's going to go
Mhm.
away. Um, but it was challenging, right? And it took a lot of months to actually come up on Black sperm that was available. So I think keeping that in mind, and as somebody that was like, I know that Black sperm isn't available and it's going to be hard for us, I did not truly understand that until I was trying to conceive. I think, too, again, however you go about trying to conceive, whether you go through an OBGYN or a birth worker, still our relationship to medical institutions can be incredibly triggering. as a breast cancer survivor, having navigated medical institutions over and over again through chemo and double mastectomy and follow-up treatments, keeping in mind that walking into a hospital to discuss with them, or a doctor's office to discuss with them about having a baby, may bring up triggers that maybe you did not know about, right? Like emotions that have just been sitting ancestrally. So I think it's important to acknowledge those and also go with the provider that you feel most comfortable with. And hopefully you can get second and third options as well. And then even the fertility clinic spaces were so I mean, a lot of these procedures, especially like IVF, is literally a class issue that it leaves out so many people that can access it because it is so expensive and most people do not have it covered under their insurance. So even an IUI, going in for the blood tests, which I did not know. I thought you could just go in for an IUI. I didn't know I'd have to have blood test screening, which all costs money. This is incredibly just cost ineffective. So keeping that in mind, that the state is really interested in only a certain person procreating, is only interested in really white people procreating, and white people are the folks that have access to the financial means to participate in quote unquote alternative ways to have children. So just keep that in mind. Don't I don't want to say beat yourself up, but it is a bit jarring how in a lot of fertility clinics we were the only Black couple. The fertility doctor was not Black. Most of the fertility doctors were not Black, and I was really hoping to work with an all Black birth working team. So keeping all of those things in mind is what I would say as like specific to Black and non-Black people of color, that our bodies have gone through so much non-consensually as it relates to reproduction that a lot of it can come up as triggers and trauma when we're trying to get pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
That's so good. And I imagine also like in the intimacy question, that affects how we feel in our bodies, how we feel safe in
100%.
relationships, and yeah, different
Mhm.
ancestral traumas that come up
Mhm.
when we're, of course, trying to create the next generation.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
Wit shared that they wrote an article on the state of the Black donor for BADT and wants to hear more about your experience as a cancer survivor in a fertility clinic. And specifically, how did you center body literacy during your trying to conceive and pregnancy time?
Yeah, I mean, everybody is so weird with cancer because we have just, all of us have, I think, been touched by cancer in some way, shape, or form. And so much of the media's perceptions of it is that it comes with a death wish. So just about every single medical provider that I've ever worked with has always come at me with some sort of like feelings of sympathy. And I personally hate that. So I'm, in terms of body literacy, I'm immediately checking folks to not relate to me as if the day that I'll die is on my forehead, right? Is to relate to me like a living, breathing person that is this year 10 years in remission, that is handling all the things that they need to handle in terms of their chronic illness, and to go forth in what we're talking about, right? Like I think about, trans folks who go to the doctor for with a cold and then they have to educate about being trans. It's like, I don't want to educate about breast cancer or make you feel better about the person that you may have unfortunately lost to cancer, right? While I'm sitting in the office wanting to talk about trying to conceive, right? You know what I mean? Like that was really challenging, is navigating people's perceptions about breast cancer, but also, I hope folks are familiar with the medical model of disability, which really just hones in on the person and says the medical model is like, I'm going to fix this ailment that you have, and that's it. There's no holistic care, right? Like this cancer is the problem, and we're going to fix the cancer, and everything else is whatever. So going through cancer treatments, realizing that doctors were not talking to me about how chemotherapy in particular would impact my libido, would impact vaginal dryness, so on and so forth, but also how it would impact me trying to conceive.
Mhm.
And when I started to, really get serious about trying to conceive, I did all these tests, and none of them revealed that I had like fluctuating thyroid. Um, I don't even know what you call it. It's not hypo, whatever. It was just thyroid crap. And that
Mhm.
no one ever talked to me about. And I literally had to get on a hormone for my thyroid. And I was like, is this connected to chemo? Like my thyroid was fine before chemo. And they're like, oh, maybe. So it's like you with trying to conceive, it was such a blessing in a lot of ways to learn how impacted my body was post cancer. It's like they're like, well, you're done with chemo, the cancer is gone, you're in remission, but your body is depleted of so many resources, of so many vital nutrients that now, regardless if you want to get pregnant or not, need to fill your body back with. And I had no idea. And I didn't try to conceive until I was almost 7 years, in remission. So that I think really was what brought up for me as a breast cancer survivor is there's so many things I have to take care of beyond my breast health, right? And beyond the fear of cancer returning. Is like, what does my body need that it was stripped from,
Mhm.
right? What is it? How can I care for it and may actually heal from this process? So I hope that answers the question. Um,
Yeah.
I feel like there was another part of it, but maybe that answers it.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Do you need a pause? Yeah, you need some water.
No, I'm good. Yeah.
I love talking about this kind of stuff.
Same. Thank you. I appreciate the question though.
Yeah, there's some great questions in here. I want to go back to the intimacy question because I see it in the community a lot. Like relationship changes, the struggles
Mhm,
that we have as queer folks in particular, how
mhm,
trying to conceive and being pregnant and postpartum affects that. And so Dana shared when they're entering 4 months postpartum and being intimate again has been a struggle
mhm.
with their spouse. And this is something that she's working on in therapy, but continues to struggle with feeling comfortable again in her body and being vulnerable in this way. And do you
Yeah.
have any advice specifically in the postpartum period around gaining intimacy back?
Yeah, as a year postpartum, I am still navigating how I feel about being intimate in a way that would be sexual or with sex. Like I could be intimate with cuddling and holding hands and kissing. And I think we need to explore intimacy in a vast way. Because I think sometimes people say intimacy, but they really just mean sex. So what does intimacy look like in a diverse way, right? Like, could you possibly hold hands? Could somebody give you a massage? Could somebody rub your feet? Could somebody make you dinner? Could someone bring you a glass of wine? Could somebody put the baby to sleep? And you watch your favorite reality show, right? Like how can we expand the definition of intimacy beyond having an orgasm or any sort of play that involves genitals, right? So I think expanding that was important for me, was helpful for me in a lot of ways, and not having that intimacy lead to genital play, right? Really, just that is the intimacy is that we're holding hands before bed, we kiss each other, we're cuddling, and that's what I need right now, right? That's what I can do. And then also, really checking in like, is your partner holding space for what you need in terms of intimacy, or are they pressuring you to engage in genital play in some way, right? And then that would be a partner that you should not be with. And I see this a lot with cis het folks, but it is absolutely a function of something that is comes to play with queer people as well, queer and trans people, is that we pressure each other to be intimate because it means something about us.
Mhm.
Why don't you want to be intimate with me? Is something wrong with me? Am I not attractive? And truly, it has very little to do with other people, right? How we are feeling. And I think 4 months postpartum is so tender. right? It is like, what is it? You're supposed to spend 40 days resting after you've given birth. I mean, 40 days is a month, almost a month and a half. So 4 months is just a little shy of that, right? Like, please rest, like please just sit there. You don't have to do anything, right? And that includes any sort of sexual activity, which oftentimes requires a lot of work, right? It can be a lot on the body. It can be a lot on the body in a good way, of course, but I think we have to consider that we just had this major traumatic event happen to our bodies, and it's important to sit with that and really take our time to get back into doing anything that involves our body.
Mhm. Yeah, and I totally agree, and I'll add that
Mm-hmm.
this was my experience, and also is supported in the research that like basically 18 months to 2 years postpartum is when a lot of birthing people kind of like start feeling a little more themselves.
Yeah.
And we don't talk about that in our culture. Like we expect
Mm-hmm.
people to bounce back. And so like
Mm-hmm.
4 months, even a year is so early. Like I felt a big shift at 2 years after I gave birth. And the one other thing I just want to add is like I think this whole process from trying to conceive to pregnancy to giving birth, it like just fundamentally changes who we are in ourselves and in the world. And I think letting that happen, like letting that transformation happen and knowing like maybe what you like sexually will be different now that you're a parent, and like giving yourself time to discover that on your own through masturbation or like sensual touch in your own body, and just like letting that change happen, because it does change us in fundamental ways, and our sex and sexuality is like one way that that can show up. But I just, it's such a spiritual transformation that I think we don't know how to hold as a culture.
It's such a good point. And I was thinking 4 months postpartum means that child is 4 months, means sleep cycles are all over the place. Please go. I mean, we are just fighting to sleep at this point. Like, uh, I don't know who has the energy. If you have the energy, fantastic. But
Mhm.
listen to your body, right? Really get interested in what your body is saying rather than what society is saying.
Mhm. And finding those other ways to be close.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Kalia is wondering why you wanted to have a child. And having children seems to be for a lot of people, especially cishet people, just a thing that you do. But maybe we don't hear enough about the intention of it. And so she's curious to hear yours.
I really wanted to have a child. My mom is deceased. So, I am really connected to the truth that, our kids are literally just ancestors here. And we are all ancestors, right? We all came from our parents, and we were all a part of our parents at one point, and our grandparents before that. And I was really moved by that, like that this child used to exist in my mother as well, and my grandmother and my great grandmother. So I just was always, I feel like, called ancestrally to have a kid. There, and I don't believe in like mother instinct or anything like that. I think that that's strange and very much rooted in colonial gender norms. But like ancestry, like Black African ancestors were like, this is something that you should do. I just felt like it was something bigger than me. And I always imagined myself pregnant, and taking really cute photos too. And then also just, I always imagine, I think people, a lot of my friends that have had kids were like, well, I wanted to have a baby because babies. But I always imagine like a teenager, right?
Mm.
And like hanging out with a teenager and really working with a teenager to be a good and wonderful teenager. I kind of like skipped the baby part. Like I thought about baby clothes, but I really just thought about like, oh, this human gets to be their own human. And I'm really interested in seeing what, this unique human is like, that comes from me, that comes from a creation of me. So that's really what I was at. I felt just called ancestrally to do so. And I wanted to much younger. I'll tell you that I wanted to, before I was diagnosed. I was about to be, I was engaged to be married. I was 4 months away from getting married when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And we had already been talking about having kids. And I was 28 when I was diagnosed. So I thought, oh, when I'm 30, I will have kids. And I'm just so thankful that I did not, one, have kids with that person because we are now divorced, but also two, that I didn't have kids at that time. I feel like I really needed to be in the street and experience and live a bit more. Not that when you have kids, you can't be in the street, but you know, it's different when you do have kids. But I feel like I needed more experience, more life experience before I gave birth. So I feel like, you know, when they say it happens at the time that it's supposed to happen, I truly believe that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We have another question, kind of jumping around a little bit, but I'm curious, or this person who submitted is anonymous. As a perinatal mental health specialist, what do you feel would have been most important in processing your birth and transition to parenthood?
You know, I had a midwife, and I highly, highly, highly recommend that everybody have a midwife. And I think I had a midwife and also a postpartum doula, and both of those things saved my life. Both of those people saved my life. I truly, profoundly believe that my midwife, Rashad, Tahani, Queen, Larla, um, that she went above and beyond caring for me. And I mean, she baked my mom's favorite cake that she would bake for us when we were kids and put it on the altar to honor my mom and to honor East when they were here. She cooked for Ebony and I for like 5 days after East was born. She put East to sleep, taught us how to do baby wrapping, and then was there for the transition of our postpartum doula to come in. And then our postpartum doula allowed us to go on dates, did nights so we could sleep, cared for East in the daytime so we could do work or rest. I mean, that was really what I needed for the transition, is to have the time and the space to actually process what the hell just happened. And I think so much of that time was like, what just happened to me? Like, to the saying of that, it feels like you've been hit by a truck, is like, has never been a better saying to describe giving birth, right? Like it does feel like that. And then it's like, wait, this baby is ours. And our kid was in the NICU. So East was in the NICU for 31 days. And that, I mean, it's like hit with a truck and then they come and run back over you. Like it was it's the hardest time in my life, I would say wholeheartedly, is leaving a hospital and not able to go home with your child, right? Like that. I don't wish that on anybody. And NICU parents that do this for much longer, they are saints, truly. So postpartum doula, midwife, you need village, right? Like you really, really need village in the transition. It's not like this pretty quote that I have. All I have is that you have people around you that will hold you and support you and hold that baby. And hold the baby even when they start to cry. They continue to hold them and rock them to sleep and put them down. I really needed that, and will forever love them and be grateful to them.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We have some more questions coming in. I want to make sure we have time for them. So Zane shared that they are a Black Mask of Center woman who's at the way beginnings of navigating pregnancy. They're wondering what your thoughts are around the benefits and drawbacks of going through a formal bank versus asking a trusted friend to be the donor. They say, I feel like there are questions I don't even know to ask myself or my partner, and I don't want to romanticize it, but rather lean into discernment.
Yeah, I mean, wait, what was the last part? Asking your partner?
I think the feeling is that there are questions that they don't even know what to ask themselves or their partner at this around that.
Yeah. We first thought we would go with just a trusted friend, because there's such a shortage of Black sperm, and not a shortage. These sperm banks do not reach out to Black folks to donate. And so we went with a friend, and the thing that was challenging is that although we went with a friend, their deposit was done at a fertility clinic. So the fertility clinic said that their sperm had to be on ice in the freezer for like 60 days. And they didn't tell us this until after they did their deposit. So that was really challenging because I thought they deposit the sperm maybe in 2 weeks when I'm ovulating, we'll do an IUI. And that just was not the case. There was all of this red tape in terms of them. They were someone that had used drugs in the past, so they were testing them for drugs. But even if you don't have a drug pass, they're going to test you regardless. They want to test for STDs and STIs. There's so much paperwork just to have the sperm removed from that fertility clinic, even because I said I wanted to have a home insemination. And that was a whole thing. So that's where we come to me getting sperm that was unwashed, right, for an IUI. So I would say there is a lot of red tape with going with a known person if you're going to use a fertility clinic. But I think if you're going to use a known person and you're going to do this at home and they're just going to be in the bathroom and then you're going to inseminate, great. I couldn't recommend it more. I think the only thing with that is that you might want to get that person's sperm tested so that you know what the mobility is. I think that that's important because you start to, you already start to spiral with this. So as much information I think that you can have about what everybody's body is doing is important. So maybe they go in for testing, but then they don't deposit there would be my advice. And then in terms of using a sperm bank, which we did end up doing, I like the anonymity of it. I like the fact that we didn't necessarily have to think about how this person could be integrated into our family because they weren't such a super close friend by any means. I think if you have a super close friend and they're already family to you, that's great. But also the legal process. Personally, I have been burned by some of my closest friends, hurt that I couldn't put it past anybody, donating sperm that down the line something could happen. So legally, you do need to get something that's binding in paper that says this is our child or whatever the agreement is. But then with a sperm bank, you don't have to do that. So I think that was my thought of these people are already donating with the intention that it's used for this reason. And we don't have to do the extra step of interviewing our friends. Do you want to have a kid? How would you like to be involved? What if the kid is a piano prodigy? Are you going to try to take the kid? Like, we didn't have to go through all those things. So those are the things we thought about. And what we experienced. So we did both routes, and personally, right now, the unknown donor route was the way that worked best.
Thank you. That's
Mhm.
great. Yeah, very thorough.
Mhm.
Let's see. Jen Allen is wondering, were there any surprising or unexpected joys or challenges that came up for you experiencing pregnancy as a Black queer person in the world?
Oh, I mean, so many joys. I feel like I continue to marvel at how miraculous it is to be pregnant, and then how miraculous it is to exist as a queer non-binary person, right? Like just our very existence in the world, right? Like that the world is interested in creating one type of person and pushing up against that on a regular basis. I just was so moved that these two things are happening in tandem, and that we get to create a family, and a family beyond what anybody could have imagined and what anybody would want, right? So as a Black person, there is absolutely a genocide against Black people in this country, and has been since Indigenous Africans were brought from the continent of Africa, right? So being able to exist and breathe in my body and be pregnant I felt so alive as well. So I think that's such a beautiful question. I think I could probably marinate on that a bit more, but honestly, that was what was there for me, was like, this is just such an honor to be able to carry life in this way. And then that this kid gets to be brought up in a politic that I think is life changing.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So back to relationships.
Yeah.
How did you and your partner prepare for trying to conceive and parenting in a way that helped you get through tense times without giving up?
Oh, geez. So my partner is younger than me. And when we got together, I think on our first date, I was like, I want to have a kid tomorrow, right? So now I am done with chemotherapy. I'm divorced. I'm like out here doing my thing, but I'm going on dates being like, so do you want to have a kid? Like a freak. Like, what is wrong with me? And he was like, I don't even know your phone number yet. Like, what's your last name? But he made it very clear that he never imagined his life with kids. So being with him, I was like, look, this is something that I do really want. So does it make sense for us to be together if this is something you never imagined your life with? And we spent 5 years in therapy, in couples therapy, working through his expectations with a kid, with having a kid or not having a kid, and how I would handle potentially maybe never being able to conceive, but also maybe we don't have a kid, right? Like, what does that look like? So, open conversations about this is so important and something that I believe that cishet people do not do. I think somebody mentioned this is that they're just expected to have kids and they go into the relationships with that expectation, and it really harms them in a lot of ways because then they have children that they are horrible to, and that they blame for doing whatever to their life, right? And I think as queer folks, we have so many moments along the way to make these conscious decisions to have kids that it really creates just these very intentional families. So we just spent a lot of time on it. Like, what are some of the things you want to do that you feel like you can't do when you have a kid? Like, why do you feel like you can't do things when you have a kid? Do you think that we can't travel, right? Do you think that, right? Like, really opening that up and not being silent about that, and also being real that your freedom looks different, right? Especially in the many of the beginning years, and really just being with that. And I think I had to really be with how honest my partner is about this experience, because I feel the pressure as a femme identifying person, as also the person that the carrying person, to be like, giving birth is great. I love it. This is wonderful. And he's like, I'm having a hard time. Right. So really holding space for his vulnerability and honesty, and not really knocking him over with, oh, you need to be honest. Because really leaning on him to be like, you know what, this is hard. This is hard as hell. I'm having a hard time. I'm tired. I don't want to be bothered. I don't want to get up at 4 a.m. Oh my God, this child just threw up on me again. Like, just having the space to be honest, I think is such an important lesson that children will teach you. But doing so before you have kids is also super important.
Mhm. Yeah. You mentioned you mentioned the genocide of Black folks here, and it made this person, the submitter of this question, think about COVID. How are you navigating new parenthood in a COVID world?
It's so it's hard. It's
Mhm.
really, really hard. Um, Asking folks to mask when they're around East, especially when East was a bit more immunocompromised, especially just coming out of the NICU. So everybody that came over had to test before they came, and then also wearing a mask. When we travel, we're masked. Obviously not East, but we are masked. Working with the daycare. We're paying for germs. We're paying
Yes.
for
Yeah.
sickness. That's what we're paying for. So, hoping that other parents will disclose if they have positive testing. Obviously, the daycare will disclose, but the daycare doesn't know what other parents won't tell them. But it is hard, right? Like, really trying to figure out how to move and navigate. Going to doctor's offices, masked all the time, washing our hands on a regular basis. Yeah, just really no shoes in our house too. It's like a big thing. Not sitting on furniture and like clothes that have been outside. in like a bed, or especially his room, like really trying to change our clothes before we go in to that space. So yeah, it's definitely challenging though. It's absolutely challenging.
I think, yeah, we might have time for two more. We have one more here. So Whit heard you talking about TTC burnout. And they're wondering what it took for you to get to the place of it happens if it happens. Like, where had your mind gone before that, and how did you deal with it? And I think I'll just share, like, in the Pregnant Together community, that's something that comes out a lot, is just this mental health roller coaster that is trying to conceive. And yeah, I would love to hear.
Yeah.
Sure.
My therapist helped a lot. So I'm a Sagittarius, if you couldn't tell already. And said, if you know anything about SAGs, is that we do the most all the time. And we were renovating a house. We had just bought a house, and then we started to renovate we were in the midst of renovating I was pregnant as we were renovating. And I think before that, we were trying to buy a house, and also I was trying to get pregnant. So my therapist was like, you need to chill. Like, you're doing a lot, right? Like, you don't actually need to do all these things. And why do you think you need to do all these things? And I had to really be honest with them, like, oh, I think that I'm supposed to have a house when I have a baby, right? Like, I think that those things, it's just like, where does that come from? You know what I mean? Like, I really had to sit with that. And then before I got pregnant, my left fallopian tube was blocked. And I went in and did a bunch of testing to try to get it unblocked, went to acupuncture, and then acupuncture is really what had it become unblocked. And from that moment, I was like, oh, I had been trying and trying and trying to get pregnant, but I was blaming myself, but then also wasn't actually looking at what possibly could be in the way. I just kept being like, it's the POTS. It's because I missed the vitamin. It's because I'm stressed, right? And we're trying to buy a house. I'm working a hella much, right? Like, I just needed to do less. And that is just me in general. Like, that's always the lesson for me, is to do less. Is to stop trying to do the most. Is to stop trying to compete with this capitalistic hellscape, and try to keep up with the Joneses and fight against the notions that I'm lazy if I just lay still. And I think that's what made me come to it is what it is that when they unblocked that fallopian tube, I was so happy that it was unblocked, because I had no idea that that was even a thing, that I was like, I'm just happy that this is handled. I'm happy that now I'm on level thyroxine and my thyroid is happy. I'm happy that my fallopian tube is happy. If we get pregnant, okay, we get pregnant. And we had a pride party, and literally the next day at the pride party, I did, what is the shot to begin ovulation? I'm forgetting the
Trigger
name.
shot, the HSG
Trigger shot.
shot, yeah.
Yes, we had a house party. I went upstairs to our bedroom, did the trigger shot by myself, came back to the party, kept partying. The next morning we went in, and for that insemination, I got pregnant. So I just felt like, I just kind of just was like, let it go. Like, I know that probably sounds woo-woo and annoying, but seriously, if you understood how intense I was being, like, please, please get pregnant, and I gotta make this work, and if I do this, and it will happen, and if I do that, it would happen. I had to, like, look, it's gonna happen if it happens. It's gonna happen if it happens, and I will accept whoever chooses me, right? Like, that was really the lesson. And to my therapist, like, all kudos to my therapist, who just was like, what's wrong with you?
So wise. It's such a spiritual practice, right? This whole thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I will throw out so once a month we do our Trying to Conceive hangout. And so that's happening tonight at 5. So those of you that are queer in TTC or solo parents, come join us tonight. I'll put the link. I'll email it to everybody, the link to the community after we sign off here. And we have 2 more minutes. Ericka, is there like anything else that you feel called to share or talk about? This has been so awesome to just get to know you more and hear about your experience. And
Yeah. I mean, I will say that the last thing I'll say is, one, thank you again so much for this space. Truly, truly needed and necessary. If you ever second guess having this space or you feel stressed about managing it, just know that it makes such a difference. There's just not a lot of space for us to be and ask questions as queer and transparent. So just thank you. And solo parents. I will say my last bit is that I had preeclampsia. And I thought because my feet were swollen that was just a function of being pregnant. And then my face got swollen. I was like, oh, this is just a function of being pregnant. Is to really pay attention to your body while you're TTC, while you're not TTC, while you are pregnant, especially, and to listen to your body, right? Because if I didn't listen to my body, if I didn't go and get that checked out, then I don't know that I would be here today. So I just invite y'all to celebrate yourselves and give yourselves so much credit and your body so much credit for how much it's had to hold, for how much it's had to navigate, and then also what it tells you, right? And really listening and building a practice of that. I think that is probably the hardest thing with being TTC is the practice of learning your body and actually listening to it and giving it what it wants. And for me, when I was pregnant, it was chicken, and I had to give it chicken. I had to.
Totally. Yes, you gotta go with the cravings. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much, Liz.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Ericka, for being here.
This
And
was wonderful. Thank you
so,
so
so
much.
sweet. And so yeah, the recording will be available in the community for those of you that are members and want to access it. And yeah, just have a beautiful rest of your day and
You do the
take good
same.
care. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye,
Bye, everybody.
everybody. Thank you for the questions.
Bye.
Bye.